Good morning, gentlemen. Welcome. Wonderful sunny weather. I'm going to talk to you about Pakistan. Pakistan is like the two sides of a coin between India and Pakistan. That means one is heads, the other is tails. So it's the same coin, and the pedigree is the same. They are inherited the states from the British Raj and earlier from the East India Company. But unfortunately, after 47, Pakistan became an Islamic state, forgot about secularism, which was one of the principles of Muhammad Ali Jinnah, and India became a so called secular republic, but with a bias in favor of the minorities. Now, I'll not go into details about all this. India's chalked out its own path. It was a tortuous path. Nehru sowed some seeds which sprouted, leading India to lose its status as a global power. And till the arrival of Narendra Modi, things were not all that good. Times have changed, however, but Pakistan, which started off on a strong foot with a military coup in 1958, led by self-styled Field Marshal Ayub Khan, earlier General Mayub Khan of the Chamar Regiment, though he later claimed to be from the Baluch Regiment, something like that. Things were better, and at that time, Pakistan was the preferred place to invest money than India. The Western world preferred Pakistan. Their per capita income in the early 60s and late 60s were higher than India, and they had a better growth rate, while India had famine and 150 other problems. But the clock, is not static, it's moving, and it moved. And it moved in a way that Pakistan began to nurture dreams of taking revenge on India for the breakup of Bangladesh, number one. Number two, they thought they should capture Kashmir and incorporated as part of Pakistan, basically on the principle that it's a Muslim majority state. And the two nation theory applied to it. Now, the two nation theory is dead and gone. We all know that. Because Bangladesh, if it was to go by the two nation theory, would never have broken away from Pakistan and formed a separate country. But that's what happened. They were Islamists, believed in Muhammad, the Prophet, but they had a different language and culture, and they said, goodbye, we're going. This breakup was, of course, facilitated by the Indian Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, and the Pakistanis have been looking for revenge, and this has been stated by no less than a man than the Indian Army Chief. So, to get even with India militarily, because Pakistan was not as strong as India, being one-fifth the size of the country, they began to build up their military to a tremendous level, and at the same time began to nurture snakes in their backyard. What snakes? The terrorists. They thought they'll be able to bleed India with 100 cuts. That was the policy of General Zia-ul Haq. I thought he was a very short-sighted general. He didn't really realize what he was doing. And he, like Nehru, who left a very bad legacy, he left a worse legacy. He introduced the Hudud Ordinance in Pakistan, which took certain crimes like rape out of the purview of the Pakistan Penal Code. And the net result was any rapist could be convicted because, as per the Sharia, you need four witnesses. So the hooded ordinance has not been repealed still. It's still hanging around the neck of the Pakistan leadership like an anchor, and they can't move forward, though they've tried to dilute a few of the provisions of the hudud ordinance. But all this points to a terribly short-sighted policy which General Zia had. First, he pampered to the Islamists. Second, he built up terrorist organization with the idea that he's going to Kashmir, like the Intifada and others, Palestinian organizations, create hell in Kashmir and find India would say, okay, we give Kashmir to you. It's not going to happen that way. And it didn't happen. Zia got assassinated, blown up in a bomb attack, And the Pakistan leadership continued with this policy. Even Nawaz Sharif, when he became Prime Minister first, was a real jihadi man, and he believed that the only way you would counter India is by jihadis going across the border and fighting. India allowed this thing to continue, and that is a mistake because we had people right from the time of Gujarat to Narasimha Rao who were not strong enough to take action. And even Vajpayee, when he became Prime Minister, was talking of Kashmirians and all that crap. He didn't think of removing Article 370, and the Indians were very slow in convicting the terrorists. And some of the trials of the terrorists continued for years together, maybe 10 years or 15 years, and then the result was a big zero. I don't recollect many people having been convicted for terrorism in Kashmir. A few have been shot dead by the army, but that always brings condemnation from the opposition. Modi's arrival has changed the picture to an extent, but only to an extent because he's also developed cold feet and hasn't moved forward. And this has given hope to Pakistan, and they're still nurturing the hope that they will be able to channelize the terrorist groups like the Jaish-e-Mohammed and others to fight in India. The JKLF also is part of this entourage, and they will be friends with Pakistan. Now, this is where the thinking goes, and this is where it's a pitfall, a precipice. You just fall down, there's no coming back. Pakistan's foundation of this theory was absolutely poor. They didn't accept that all terrorists have a seamless organization, and they are not terrorists in the strict sense, in the sense they are fighting for a political cause. And the cause is an Islamic caliphate. This is a lot of romantic dream among the Muslims. And if you remember, Abu Baghdadi, the man who was hounded to death by the Americans when they let loose an array of ferocious dogs on him in his hideout, pandered to that belief. People had a belief that, well, the caliphate will come and we'll be happy, like the Ottoman rule. But nothing goes by the book. And there were people in the organization, and one of them which has come to the fore is the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. And this group has made it their fundamental policy to destroy the Pakistani state as it is. And they would like to usher in a pristine form of Sharia in Pakistan, a pure Islamic state. And their concept of Islamic state is the close to it is what is happening in Afghanistan. What is happening there? Women are confined to the home, no education, no studies, no jobs. You just have children, get married, and you cover yourself from head to toe with a shroud, the burqa. Pakistan, comparatively, is a modern state. They hold fashion shows. Their women don't all of them wear burqa. There's no compulsion. And by and large, the Pakistanis' marriage law has been regulated way back in 1959 by Ayub Khan when he issued the family ordinance. And then Pakistan is also a liberal state because the constitution which was given to Pakistan by Zulfikar Ali Bhutto clearly specifies in the constitution that the minorities' rights will be respected and they will be given membership of the Pakistan Senate. These things are ones which do not go down the throat of the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. And now I'm coming to the brass tacks. Right from the last 10 years, this organization has been carrying out mass killings. And the biggest one, if you remember, was in 2014 when they killed almost 200 children in the army public school. It's a reprehensible act, something which you cannot condone because the fight is between men and killing children is abhorrent. But this is precisely what they did, and they tried to blame it again on the Pakistan army. And they said, we want to bring home to the Pakistan army what it means to lose children because you've been bombing our areas, our villages, and killing our children. This is a very, very stupid logic. But all the same, this is what they said, and they haven't given up. Then they had a ceasefire with the Pakistan government, more on persuasion from the Taliban of Afghanistan, but that has been rescinded, abrogated by them last year, and now a full-fledged battle is on. They have done now tremendous terrorist attacks. A mosque, a holy mosque in Peshawar, has been razed to the ground. More than 100 good Sunni Muslims have died, and so the tide has now turned against the Pakistan. These terrorist organizations like the Taliban are having support, and they get refuge from none other than the Afghan Taliban. The Afghan Taliban itself is a daggers drawn with Pakistan, and there have been border clashes along the Durand line because Durand line is not recognized by any Afghan country and that regime, and that also includes the present Taliban. Pakistan thought they'd have their way once the Taliban comes to power, and they'll be in a position to pressurize the Taliban to ban the TTK, the Taliban, and hand over the leaders to the Pakistan military courts to try them. Unfortunately, the Afghan Taliban hasn't played ball. They said, okay, thank you, we're not going to do it, we don't believe in it. And things are getting bad for the relations between Afghanistan and Pakistan. So now we are in a very peculiar situation. The Pakistan Taliban has now set up a shadow cabinet as well. They have their own ministers running, and they are so confident that they are now come out in the open. And only today I was reading the news, they have attacked a police station in Punjab. And the gun battle continued for 2 hours before the militants withdrew. Now, what is then going to be the future of Pakistan? Another thing is that, as I've been telling you, the Pakistan economy was doing very well till about 94, 95, when it was a preferred source of investment for the Western powers. But now the economy has tanked. It's gone down. It's been flagged down. What's really happened is, again, it boils to the same thing, the army. Pakistan has a bloated army, almost 800,000 soldiers, including the Air Force, and they have a separate naval manpower. And this is a tremendous force. And we also not forgetting the Pakistan Rangers who are on the border, like the Indian BSF. And a substantial chunk of the budget goes to the army. And at a time when there was grave floods, almost of biblical proportion, in Punjab and other places, and all the grains were destroyed, the economy was greatly affected. Pakistan not knowing what to do next. The rupee has tanked, is almost 270 Pakistan rupees to a dollar, and the black market's about 300, 350. So you can well imagine what the situation is in Pakistan. Pakistan's balance of payments is coming down to zero. They don't have the currency to pay for their imports, and yet you can well imagine how foolish the present regime is that they have decided to import 2,000 luxury cars at a time when Pakistan's economy is in dire straits. I'm afraid even Imran Khan, who was the prime minister earlier and is party to what is happening now, is responsible, and he must own up his responsibility, but doesn't do it. He keeps on talking of imported government as a government imposed by the Americans. Well, to an extent, it may be true, may not be true, because the Americans have been doing such things earlier. If you recollect, they did the same thing in 1954 when they brought the Shah and put him into power in Tehran. So I'll comment on this, but there's a glimmer which shows that perhaps the Americans could have done something like this in Pakistan, when our friend, the ex-prime minister Imran Khan lost the midnight vote. He became the first prime minister in Pak history to be voted out of office, and also carried on the tradition of a Pakistan prime minister of never completing his term. Now, what is going to happen next? The economy is very, very bad. They have a bloated army. The World Bank, the IMF, even Saudi Arabia, China, and the UAE, who want to help, want reforms in Pakistan, and they want the Pakistan army cut to size. You don't need such a big army. So the prime minister is in the horns of a dilemma. He doesn't know what to do. He's feeling lost. He's been going around with a begging bowl. He made 3 visits to Saudi Arabia and also went a number of times to the UAE, Qatar. He went twice to China. But China wants his pound of flesh. It's like the Merchant of Venice, when Shylock said, I want my pound of flesh. That's what you had signed. So the Chinese had given short-term loans with high interest. They want the money back. Saudi Arabia has given something, but you can't expect them to bankroll the entire Pakistan economy, which is totally lopsided. Massive military budget and spending money on non-essential like import of luxury cars. I mean, it's something weird I couldn't think of when people are not having food to eat and the prices have skyrocketed. Wheat is not available because wheat is a staple diet of the Pakistanis. So what the hell is going to be done there? Pakistan fast is degenerating into a nation which has never taken off. And that is a very, very relevant point which I'm making. Pakistan's dream of parity with India is finished. There is no way now. India's got an income uh, many times that of Pakistan. India's GDP is touching 3 trillion. Pakistan is not even half a trillion. So you don't know what Pakistan is going to do, and you don't know how Pakistan will get out of the morass in which it has fallen now. Who's going to do it? You expect Shahbaz Sharif to do it? There we have Nawaz Sharif, who is really running the government. He's the real de facto prime minister sitting in London, hiding there, but probably he'll come back if he can get immunity from the Pakistani courts because he's been sentenced to 10 years for corruption. And if he does come back, maybe things might improve because he is a pragmatic man, and I think he'll have a détente with India. But that is to be we have to wait and see what happens. Now, Pakistan is in dire straits. The economy is tanked, and above all, you have religious parties and even political parties who pander to the religious sentiments of the Pakistan people. An example is the blasphemy law, which was refined by General Zia-ul Haq, making death mandatory for anybody who is, in their opinion, blasphemous of the Prophet. It's a question of interpretation, and the net result is more than 120 people are on death row in Pakistan, and nowhere in the world have so many prisoners put on death row just for blasphemy. And at least 70 people have been killed in the courts, right in front of the judicial system which was trying them for blasphemy. And the public also is extremely volatile. Just a few months back, a Sri Lanka engineer who was working was just lynched to death by crowds who claimed he was writing some slogans against the Prophet. These are bull, actually, got no relevance. It just about shows that the blasphemy laws has taken Pakistan back to the age. All this doesn't satisfy the Taliban. They want a caliphate. And that is the point which Pakistan have to fight. Pakistan must realize that the enemy is not India, it is the enemy inside. And that enemy inside can be very, very dangerous and insidious. What can they do? It can lead up to the breakup of Pakistan. There are already people talking that they would like to be free of the Pakistan regime at the moment. Even in Pakistan occupied Kashmir, the so called Azad Kashmir, the people are going around saying that we'd like to join India. Muzaffarpur is not very far from the Indian border, it's the capital of Pakistan occupied Kashmir, and probably one thrust and the Indian army will take Muzaffarpur. Because the Pakistan army is not the same army which was fought in 65 war earlier. It's now an indolent army. The generals have become lost the art of fighting a war, of commanding troops, as they're more intent in running corporations and big companies and industries, construction companies making money. That's the name of the game. Look at General Bajwa. What were his assets when he became the chief? I won't go into figures. You can see them on the net. His assets have gone into billions of dollars within the matter of a few years when he was the chief of the Pakistan army. And there's so many of them, the generals, who have their head and feet as well as their hands in the golden pile. Only thing, the Midas touch of gold is only for these people, while the poor people, whenever they touch anything, it becomes hunger for them. Pakistan, gentlemen, is now at the end of the teeter. I don't think anything can be done now, and Pakistan will go down in history as a failed state, and they will have to counter the Pakistan Taliban. How are they going to do it? They can't do it by talking all sorts of absurd things. They can't talk of Islamization or something like that, because that is what the Taliban want. And unfortunately, we have some very short-sighted leaders who are there at the moment, like by beloved Bhutto, who really doesn't know what's happening, and he keeps on talking utter nonsense. Like, for example, calling Narendra Modi a butcher and comparing him to Osama bin Laden. I mean, it's a big joke. I mean, this young man probably doesn't know what is the meaning of a terrorist and what is the meaning of honest opposition. India, there is honest opposition, but there are no terrorists in the political ferment. Gentlemen, I'm coming to the end. Pakistan, which is supposed to be the land of the pure, is no longer pure. There are a lot of impurities which have crept in, and it will require Muhammad Ali Jinnah to take Pakistan out of this morass, but there's none available. All small men are sitting there. You can well imagine they're thinking when in such a time of grave crisis, they are going ahead and importing luxury cars. So you can see what is happening. Most likely, Pakistan already ceded the port of Gardar to China in lieu of the debts which they have taken from China. And there is a Baluch Liberation Army fighting for independence of Baluchistan. And the Sindh people, including the MQM, do not want to be part of Pakistan. So what's going to happen, gentlemen? Well, what is ordained, what is said, as the Brigush says, what is to happen will happen. And in my opinion, Pakistan on the verge of a breakup and the setting up of 4 states. And in due course of time, at least Sindh, Kalat, and Baluchistan could well become part of India. This may look absolutely like a fantasy now, but everything in life is not a fantasy, gentlemen, because the dividing line is very thin from reality. And it's quite possible that this may happen. I close, gentlemen. I wish you all the best. Please do subscribe to my channel, like it, share it with your friends, and I will say goodbye. Jai Hind. Glory to India. Take care and God bless.